just present. The Henderson Group reconsidered, by the way. The acquisition is back on. That's good news. They said your focus on the human element impressed them. Choosing a personal commitment over a board meeting showed integrity. Elliot smiles. Claire always said doing the right thing pays off in unexpected ways. The house lights dim. Elliot straightens his tie and steps onto the stage, blinking against the spotlight. "Good evening," he begins. "3 years ago, I established the Carrington Foundation to honor my late wife Claire's belief that everyone deserves a chance to be heard. Tonight, we celebrate not just what we've done, but what's still to come." As he speaks about the Foundation's achievements, Elliot finds himself meaning every word in a way he hasn't since Claire's death. This year, we're launching a new program, the Claire Donovan Carrington Musical Scholarship, dedicated to young musicians who, like Claire, believe in music's power to connect us across time and circumstance. He takes a deep breath before his final announcement. To inaugurate this program, I'd like to introduce our first recipient, a young woman whose voice reminded me of what Claire always knew, that music isn't just something we hear, it's something we feel, something that can guide us home when we're lost. He gestures toward the wings. Please welcome Maya Reeves. Maya steps onto the stage, transformed from the bedraggled figure in the rain. Her dark hair falls in soft waves around her shoulders. She wears a simple but elegant blue dress, and her mother's silver locket gleams at her throat. A murmur runs through the audience. Speculation about this unknown girl and her connection to Elliot Carrington. Maya takes her place at the microphone, guitar in hand. For a moment, stage fright seems to overtake her. Then her gaze meets Elliot's, and something passes between them. Encouragement, understanding, shared loss, and newfound connection. She begins to play, the familiar notes of Moonlit Lullaby, filling the hall. Her voice rises clear and strong, carrying the melody that has passed through generations of her family. Claire's family. Elliot watches from the side, feeling Claire's presence more strongly than he has since her death. Not as a painful absence, but as a gentle guide who led him through the storm to this unexpected connection. As Maya plays the final chords, the audience rises in a standing ovation. Elliot steps forward to join her, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. She beams up at him, eyes bright with joy. Later, after the gala has ended, Elliot and Maya stand on the pavilion's rooftop terrace. The city spreads before them, lights twinkling against the night sky. "Thank you," Maya says, still clutching her guitar. "Not just for tonight, but for everything." "I should be thanking you," Elliot replies. "You brought music back into my life, when I thought it was gone forever." They stand in companionable silence. The scholarship is just the beginning. Elliot has already started the process of becoming Maya's legal guardian, a step neither had anticipated, but which now feels right. There will be challenges ahead, but for now, there is only the peace of finding connection where it was least expected. Maya's fingers move absently over the guitar strings, finding the melody that brought them together. "Do you think they know?" she asks, looking up at the stars. "My mom and Claire. Do you think they somehow arranged all this?" Elliot follows her gaze upward. A shooting star traces a brilliant path across the heavens. "Claire always said there are no coincidences," he replies softly. "I'm starting to believe she was right." Maya leans slightly against his shoulder, the gesture tentative but full of trust. Elliot feels the weight of responsibility, but it's balanced now by something lighter: hope, purpose, the promise of a future neither had imagined before the storm. "Under this new sky," Elliot whispers, "your voice will carry her legacy, and ours? Forward." Maya smiles, playing the opening notes of Moonlit Lullaby once more. This time, Elliot joins in, his voice rusty but growing stronger as they sing together. Two strangers connected by loss, by music, by a song passed down through generations. The music drifts upward, a bridge between past and future, between grief and healing. As the final notes fade into the night, a gentle breeze carries the promise of tomorrow. "Ready to go home?" Elliot asks. Maya nods, slipping her hand into his as naturally as if they'd known each other all their lives. "Home," she repeats, testing the word and finding it fits. Together, they turn from the view and walk toward the door, leaving behind the distant rumble of thunder, not a threat now, but a reminder of the storm that brought them together and the music that guided them home. Handwriting inside is a brief note. "Thank you for your kindness. If you still want to hear the rest of the song, I'll be at Riverside Park at noon. Maya." Relief floods him, followed by anxiety. Noon, the same time as his emergency board meeting. The choice looms clear: his company or this mysterious connection he can't explain even to himself. His phone buzzes again. His assistant, calling for the third time this morning. With a deep breath, Elliot answers. "Harrison, I can't make the board meeting. The sputtered protests are expected." Elliot cuts them off gently but firmly. "I understand the concerns. I'll address them tomorrow. Today, I have a prior commitment that can't be rescheduled." More warnings about consequences follow. Elliot listens patiently. Sometimes we need to be reminded of why we do what we do. I think Claire would understand that. I hope the board will, too. He ends the call, feeling lighter than he has in years. Riverside Park, Elliot follows the sound of Moonlit Lullaby to a wrought iron gazebo surrounded by roses beginning to bloom after the storm. Maya sits on the steps, guitar in hand. She looks up as Elliot approaches, her fingers stilling on the strings. "You came," she says, sounding surprised. "I got your note." Elliot gestures to the guitar. "I didn't know you played." The youth center has a music program. They let me practice. Sometimes. Elliot sits beside her, leaving a respectful distance. "You don't need to thank me." "Yeah, I do." Maya's fingers move idly over the guitar strings. "Most people would have just driven past. Most people wouldn't have heard you over the storm. But you did." Maya looks at him directly. "Why?" Instead of answering, Elliot reaches into his pocket and withdraws Claire's music box. Maya's eyes widen as he places it between them. "This was my wife's," Elliot explains. "She hid it for me to find after. Last night was the first time I discovered it." Maya stares at the box. Slowly, she reaches into her pocket and pulls out an object wrapped in a handkerchief. She unwraps it carefully, revealing a music box identical to Claire's. "This was my mother's," she says quietly. "It's the only thing of hers I have left." Elliot feels his heart quicken. "May I?" he asks, extending his hand. Maya places the box in his palm. Elliot examines it. The same construction, the same hinges, but the initials engraved inside are different. AR intertwined with JR. "My parents," Maya explains. "Anna and James Reeves." "The song," Elliot says softly. "How did you learn it?" Maya takes the box back, tracing the engraving. "My mom used to sing it to me. She said her grandmother taught it to her, and her grandmother before. That. A family tradition. Claire said it was playing the first time her parents danced together, and when they danced with her as a baby. She called it a family spell. Whenever it played, something magical would happen. That's what my mom used to say, too. That it was magic." "What was your mother's maiden name?" Elliot asks. "Donovan," Maya replies. "Why?" "Claire's maiden name was Donovan. Claire Elizabeth Donovan." Maya's hands still on the guitar. "My mom was Anna Marie Donovan before she married." "Sisters?" Maya shakes her head. "My mom was an only child, but she talked about cousins who moved away before I was born, said they lost touch after some family argument. Claire never mentioned any family besides her parents. They sit in silence, contemplating the connection neither had known existed until now. 2 music boxes, 1 song, a family divided and reunited by chance, or perhaps something less easily explained. "I think," Maya says finally, "we might be related." Elliot nods. "Cousins, once or twice removed. Claire would have loved knowing she had family out there." A shelter volunteer appears, calling Maya's name. She waves in acknowledgement, then turns back to Elliot. "I have to go. They're arranging temporary housing." She hesitates. "I guess this is goodbye." Again. Elliot feels that familiar tightness in his chest. The same sensation when watching Claire slip away, when missing the board meeting. But this time, instead of retreating, he leans into it. "It doesn't have to be," he says. Maya looks skeptical. "What do you mean?" "I have a proposition for you," Elliot says carefully. "No strings attached, and you can say no without any hard feelings." 2 weeks later, Elliot stands backstage at the Grand Pavilion, watching technicians make final lighting adjustments. The annual Carrington Foundation Gala is minutes from beginning, and for the first time since founding the charity in Claire's memory, he feels something beyond obligation. "Nervous?" Harrison asks, appearing beside him. His assistant has been unusually solicitous since Elliot missed the emergency board meeting, a decision that hadn't led to the corporate apocalypse Harrison predicted. "Not nervous," Elliot replies. "Room." He hasn't played since before Claire's diagnosis, hasn't even lifted the cover from the keys. Now he does so slowly, reverently, as if unveiling a long-buried treasure. The ivory gleams in the dim light, waiting for a touch that's years overdue. Elliot seats himself on the bench, his fingers hovering uncertainly over the keys. The first notes of Moonlit Lullaby come hesitantly, rusty with disuse but growing more confident as muscle memory takes over. The melody fills the empty apartment, wrapping around him like Claire's arms used to do, both comforting and painful in its familiarity. As the final notes fade into silence, Elliot becomes aware of a wetness on his cheeks that has nothing to do with the storm outside. He makes no move to wipe away the tears, instead letting them fall freely for the first time since they lowered Claire's casket into the ground. A sudden impulse has him reaching for his phone. A quick search brings up the number for the Heritage Center. The volunteer who answers sounds harried. "Is Maya Reeves still there?" Elliot asks without preamble. "Let me check," the woman says, the sound of shuffling papers audible in the background. "Yes, she's been assigned cot 17. Would you like me to get her?" "No, thank you. I just wanted to make sure she was safe." Elliot ends the call, a strange sense of relief washing over him. He returns to the piano, but instead of playing, he notices something nestled beneath the bench, a small wooden box he doesn't recognize. Curious, he retrieves it. The box is simple but elegant, made of polished cherrywood with delicate hinges. There's no lock, just a small clasp holding it closed. Elliot opens it carefully. Inside lies a miniature music box mechanism, the kind that plays when wound. Attached is a note in Claire's handwriting. "For when you're ready to hear the music again. Always C." With trembling fingers, Elliot winds the tiny key. The familiar notes of Moonlit Lullaby tinkle out, delicate and perfect in their simplicity. As the melody plays, he notices something engraved on the inside of the lid. Claire's initials, intertwined with his own. A gift she must have hidden before her death. A message from beyond the grave, delivered on the very night he heard her song, again from a stranger's lips. The coincidence is too perfect, too precise to be mere chance. For the first time in 3 years, Elliot feels something stir within him, not just grief or obligation or the dull determination that has driven his business success, but something lighter, more fragile. Hope. As the tiny music box plays its final notes, Elliot makes a decision. Tomorrow, he will return to the Heritage Center. He will find Maya and discover how she came to know Claire's song. And perhaps, in doing so, he will begin to fulfill the promise he made to his dying wife, to truly live again, not just exist. The storm continues to rage outside, but within Elliot's penthouse, something has shifted. A door, long closed, has opened just a crack, allowing a sliver of light to penetrate the darkness that has been his constant companion these past 3 years. He closes the music box gently, holding it against his chest like the precious artifact it is. Then he notices something else, a small edge of fabric protruding from beneath one of the cots he passed at the shelter. In his mind's eye, he sees it clearly, the corner of a blanket, and beneath it, the glint of something metal. A music box, identical to the one he now holds. Morning arrives with tentative sunlight breaking through dissipating clouds. The storm has passed, leaving behind debris-strewn streets and the occasional abandoned car. Elliot stands at his penthouse window, watching the city slowly recover. Claire's music box rests on the piano beside him, its melody repeating in his mind. The coincidence feels too significant to ignore. Maya singing Claire's song, the matching music box he glimpsed at the shelter. His phone buzzes with messages from his executive team. The Henderson deal has fallen through. The Asian market expansion is on hold. His assistant has scheduled an emergency board meeting for noon to address concerns about leadership. 3 years ago, such crises would have consumed him. Today, they feel distant compared to the mystery that's captured his thoughts. Elliot dresses in casual clothes, jeans and a sweater unworn since before Claire's illness. He tucks the music box into his pocket and heads out. At the Heritage Center, Elliot scans the room for Maya but doesn't see her. A volunteer informs him she left 20 minutes ago, leaving no forwarding address. Disappointment washes over him. He'd built up their connection, convinced that fate had orchestrated their meeting. Now she's vanished, taking with her both her secrets and his newfound sense of purpose. As he turns to leave, a folded paper on one of the cots catches his eye. His name is written on the outside in unfamiliar. At Sunnyvale, the volunteer makes a note. They evacuated an hour ago. You're lucky you found your way here. Her gaze shifts to Elliot, taking in his expensive, if sodden, attire. And you are? Just dropping her off, Elliot says. I'm not staying. The woman nods, already moving on to the next task. There are dry clothes in the boxes by the restrooms. Help yourself. Dinner's at 7 if the kitchen staff can make it through the flooding. Maya turns to Elliot, suddenly awkward. Thank you. For everything. Will you be all right here? He asks, reluctant to leave her among strangers despite the logical part of his brain reminding him that this was the plan all along. Get her to safety, then return to his own life. I've stayed in worse places, Maya says with a wry smile. She hesitates, then adds, What about your meeting, the one you were heading to when you heard me singing? Elliot blinks, surprised she remembered. Missed it entirely. Was it important? Very. Strange. How distant it all seems now. How inconsequential compared to the girl standing before him with rainwater dripping from her hair onto the worn linoleum floor. I'm sorry, Maya says, and unlike the empty platitudes offered after Claire's death, her words carry genuine regret. Don't be, Elliot replies. Some things are more important. They stand in silence for a moment, the sound of rain beating against the roof filling the space between them. Around them, volunteers distribute blankets and hot drinks. Children chase each other between the cots, and tired parents try to maintain some semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos. I should go, Elliot says finally, though the thought of returning to his empty penthouse holds little appeal. Maya nods. Goodbye, Mr. Carrington. Elliot, he corrects gently. Elliot, she repeats, offering her hand. He takes it, struck by how small and cold her fingers feel against his palm. Take care of yourself, Maya. With a final nod, Elliot turns and walks back through the center, past the rows of cots and the huddled groups of storm refugees. The volunteer at the door offers a distracted goodbye as he pushes back out into the rain. The storm has lessened slightly, but the streets remain flooded. Elliot makes his way back to where his driver waits, the SUV's headlights cutting through the gloom. As he slides into the back seat, exhaustion hits him like a physical weight. "Home, sir?" the driver inquires, concern evident in his voice. "Yes," Elliot says, leaning his head back against the seat. "Home." The car pulls away, navigating carefully through the flooded streets. Elliot stares out at the rain-lashed city, seeing none of it. In his mind's eye, he's back in the hospital room where Claire spent her final days, the antiseptic smell of the place almost but not quite masking the scent of impending death. Claire's voice, thin but determined. "Promise me you'll live, Elliot. Not just exist. Live." He'd promised, and then proceeded to break that promise every day for 3 years. The thought brings a tightness to his chest that has nothing to do with the damp chill of his clothes or the lingering effects of the storm. For the first time in years, he allows himself to truly feel the weight of his grief, to acknowledge the emptiness that has become his constant companion since Claire's death. The SUV pulls up to his building, a gleaming tower of steel and glass that houses the most expensive apartments in the city. The doorman rushes forward with an umbrella, but Elliot barely notices as he makes his way through the marble lobby to the private elevator that will take him to his penthouse. Inside, the space is immaculate, tastefully decorated in cool grays and blues, Claire's touch evident in every careful selection, though she never lived to see the project completed. Elliot moves through the rooms like a ghost, leaving wet footprints on the polished hardwood floors. In the master bathroom, he strips off his ruined suit and stands under the shower's scalding spray until his skin turns pink and the chill begins to leave his bones. But the cold that has taken root inside him since hearing Moonlit Lullaby on that rain-soaked street corner remains, impervious to external heat. Wrapped in a plush robe, Elliot wanders to the living room. The floor-to-ceiling windows offer a panoramic view of the city, the storm transforming the usual twinkling lights into blurred smudges of color. Lightning flashes intermittently, briefly illuminating the rain-drenched landscape before plunging it back into shadow. He pours himself a glass of scotch, 18-year-old Macallan, Claire's favorite, and raises it in a silent toast to the storm, to Maya with her haunting voice, to the memory of a wife he failed to save and a promise he failed to keep. The first sip burns pleasantly, but brings no comfort. Elliot sets the glass aside and moves to the baby grand piano that dominates. One corner of the "Drive you somewhere safer," he offers. "My car is just outside." Maya hesitates, and Elliot can see the calculations running behind her eyes, weighing the danger of the storm against the risk of accepting more help from a stranger. The Heritage. Center on 10th is above the flood line, the landlady suggests. They take overflow from Sunnyvale during weather emergencies. Decision made, Maya nods. "That would be... I'd appreciate that." They finish their hot chocolate quickly, and Elliot leaves a generous tip on the table. Outside, the storm has intensified. The wind drives the rain horizontally, and the street has become a shallow river, water swirling around fire hydrants and the tires of parked cars. Elliot's driver jumps out with an umbrella as they exit the cafe, but it's a futile gesture against the storm's fury. By the time they reach the SUV, all three are soaked again. The Heritage Center on 10th Street, Elliot instructs as they settle into the leather seats. "And hurry, please." The driver navigates carefully through the flooded streets, wipers working. At maximum speed, headlights reflecting off the rain-slicked pavement. Emergency vehicles wail in the distance. Twice, they have to turn back and find alternate routes as streets become impassable. Maya sits silently beside Elliot, her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the chaos outside. The locket at her throat gleams dully in the dim light of the car's interior. May I ask about your locket? Elliot says, breaking the silence. Maya's hand moves instinctively to the silver pendant. It was my mother's. Was? She died when I was 12. The words are spoken flatly without inflection, as if to guard against the emotion behind them. Cancer. I'm sorry, Elliot says, the inadequacy of the words striking him anew. How many times had people offered him those same empty syllables after Claire's death? How many times had he nodded politely while wanting to scream that sorry changed nothing, fixed nothing, brought no one back? Maya shrugs, a gesture too world-weary for her young shoulders. It was a long time ago. Not so long, Elliot observes, quietly. She glances at him, a flash of surprise crossing her features as if unused to having her pain acknowledged. No, she agrees after a moment. Not so long. The car slows as they approach 10th Street. Water rushes across the intersection ahead, already too deep for safe passage. The Heritage Center is visible 2 blocks away, lights blazing through the storm, but the route is blocked by the rising floodwaters. We'll have to find another way, the driver says, beginning to turn around. Wait, Maya leans forward, pointing. There's an alley that runs behind those buildings. It's on higher ground. If we can get to it, we can reach the center on foot. The driver looks to Elliot for confirmation. Do it, Elliot decides. They creep down a narrow side street and turn into an even narrower alleyway. The buildings on either side offer some protection from the wind, but the rain still falls relentlessly. The driver stops where the alley widens. Slightly. This is as far as I can go, sir. The center is just beyond that fence at the end. Elliot nods. Wait here. I'll be back once I've seen her safely inside. Mr. Carrington. The driver begins to protest. I'll be fine, Elliot insists, opening his door. To Maya, he says, Ready? She nods and they plunge back into the storm. The water in the alley is ankle-deep and rising, swirling around their legs as they make their way toward the distant lights of the shelter. The wind tears at their clothes and hair, driving the rain into their faces with painful force. They reach the fence, a tall iron gate set into a brick wall. Beyond it, a short path leads to the shelter's rear entrance, but the gate is secured with a heavy padlock. It shouldn't be locked, Maya says, raising her voice to be heard above the storm. They always keep it open during emergencies. Elliot examines the lock. It's old, rusted, the keyhole clogged with debris. Behind them, the water continues to rise, now midway up their calves and creeping higher with alarming speed. Stand back, Elliot instructs, looking around for something to use as a tool. Finding nothing, he braces his foot against the fence and grips the lock with both hands, pulling with all his strength. The metal cuts into his palms, but he continues to pull, muscles straining. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, with a groan of protesting metal, the hasp of the lock tears free from the gate. The Heritage Center is a converted church, its stained glass windows now dark against the storm outside, its nave repurposed into a dormitory of sorts. Rows of cots line the main hall, many already occupied by other refugees from the flooding. A harried-looking woman in a volunteer's vest greets them at the door, clipboard in hand. Names? She asks briskly. Maya Reeves, Maya supplies. I'm usually wallet again. How much? Elliot, no. Maya starts to protest. Jason names a figure that makes Maya gasp with outrage. $5,000. That's a lie. I never. 5,000, Elliot repeats, maintaining eye contact with Jason as he pulls out his checkbook. He writes swiftly, tears out the check, and holds it just beyond Jason's reach. In exchange for this, you relinquish any claim on Maya. No further contact. No showing up where she works or stays. Are we clear? Greed battles with pride on Jason's face. Who the hell do you think you are? Someone who can make your life very difficult or moderately easier, Elliot replies evenly. Your choice. For a moment, violence hangs in the air like electricity before a lightning strike. Then Jason snatches the check from Elliot's hand, eyes darting to the signature. Recognition dawns on his face. Carrington, as in Carrington Technologies. A new wariness enters his expression. The same. Jason folds the check carefully, tucking it into his jacket. His stance relaxes slightly, but his eyes remain cold. She's not worth the trouble anyway. He glances at Maya. Enjoy your charity. Case, she'll bleed you dry just like she did me. With that parting shot, he turns and stalks out of the cafe, letting in another blast of rain and wind as the door swings shut behind him. The silence that follows feels brittle, as if the slightest movement might shatter it. Then the elderly couple resumes their quiet conversation. The student returns to his books, and the normal hum of cafe life gradually returns. Maya stares at the table, her face flushed with a complex mixture of emotions. "You shouldn't have done that," she says finally. "He was lying about the money." "I know," Elliot replies, sitting back down. She looks up, surprised. "Then why pay him?" "Because it solved an immediate problem." Elliot takes a sip of his hot chocolate, which has cooled to a palatable temperature. "And because some people only understand transactions." Maya studies him with new wariness. "Is that what this is? A transaction?" The question catches Elliot off guard. "What do you mean?" "500 to the landlady. 5,000 to Jason." Her fingers twist the silver locket nervously. "What exactly are you buying, Mr. Carrington?" The accusation in Maya's voice, subtle but unmistakable, hits Elliot like a physical blow. For the first time, he sees the situation through her eyes. A wealthy stranger appearing out of nowhere, throwing money at her problems, whisking her away from the street corner where she'd been singing. "I'm not buying anything," he says carefully, setting down his mug. "That song you were singing. It meant something to someone I lost." Something in his tone must convey his sincerity because the suspicion in Maya's eyes softens slightly. "Your wife?" Elliot nods, surprised by her perception. "How did you know?" Maya gestures vaguely toward his left hand, where the pale band of skin on his ring finger betrays the recent removal of a wedding band. "Most men your age with that kind of money are either married or divorced. And divorced guys don't usually get that look when they talk about their ex-wives." "What look?" "Like someone punched a hole through your chest." She says it matter-of-factly, without pity or judgment, as she breaks off a piece of her croissant. Elliot finds himself smiling despite the ache her words awaken. "You're very observant." "Have to be, when you live like I do." She pops the pastry into her mouth, chewing thoughtfully. "So your wife liked that song?" It was her favorite. The words come easier than Elliot expected. "Claire used to sing it all the time, in the shower, while cooking. It was her song." Maya's expression grows thoughtful. "And you heard me singing it tonight in the middle of a storm, and what? Decided fate was sending you a message? Put that way, it sounds foolish, impulsive. Everything the board members and investors claim Elliot isn't. Everything he's carefully trained himself not to be since taking over as CEO following Claire's death." "Something like that," he admits. "Exee." Crack of thunder shakes the cafe windows, followed by a flash of lightning that momentarily turns night to day. The landlady approaches their table, her expression concerned. "The storm is getting worse," she says, nodding toward the TV mounted in the corner where a weather alert scrolls across the bottom of the screen. "They're saying flash floods in the low-lying areas." "Where are you staying, Maya?" Maya shifts uncomfortably. "I was going to crash at Sunnyvale." The landlady clicks her tongue disapprovingly. "That youth shelter? It's in the flood zone. They'll be evacuating soon if they haven't already." Elliot glances at his watch, a habitual gesture that reminds him of the meeting he's now completely missed. His phone has been silent for the past 20 minutes. His team has likely given up trying to reach him. "I can." Hurriedly between meetings, as the landlady bustles away, an awkward silence descends. The girl fidgets with her locket, opening and closing it with practiced fingers. Elliot becomes acutely aware of his sodden appearance. Water dripping from his hair onto the collar of his ruined suit, his Italian leather shoes squelching slightly whenever he shifts his feet. "I'm Elliot," he says again, extending his hand across the table. After a moment's hesitation, she reaches out to shake it briefly. "Maya! Maya!" he repeats, testing the name. "That song you were singing." "Here we are," the landlady interrupts, setting down 2 steaming mugs topped with whipped cream and 2 plates bearing almond croissants. "Anything else?" "This is perfect." "Thank you," Elliot says with a polite smile. The woman hovers a moment longer, clearly curious about the odd pair they make, the soaked businessman in his designer suit and the bedraggled teenager. When neither offers any explanation, she reluctantly retreats to the counter. Maya wraps her hands around the mug, soaking in its warmth. "You were saying?" "The song you were singing outside," Elliot continues, his voice carefully neutral. "It's unusual. Where did you learn it?" Something flickers in Maya's eyes. Caution, perhaps, or a deeper emotion Elliot can't quite name. "Around," she says vaguely. "Why? Do you know it?" Before Elliot can answer, the cafe door bangs open, letting in a gust of wind and rain, and a young man whose angry gaze immediately locks onto Maya. He's perhaps in his early 20s with the same dark hair as Maya, but none of her delicate features. His clothes are relatively dry, suggesting he traveled by car rather than on foot. "There you are," he snarls, striding toward their table, leaving muddy footprints on the tile floor. "I've been looking everywhere." Maya stiffens, her fingers tightening, around the mug. "Jason. Don't Jason me," he snaps, looming over her. "Where's the money?" Elliot rises to his feet, an instinctive response to the threat in the young man's voice. "Is there a problem?" Jason's gaze flicks to Elliot, taking in the expensive watch, the tailored suit despite its current state. His expression shifts. Calculation, replacing anger. "No problem. Family matter. My cousin here borrowed some money without asking." "I didn't take your money," Maya says, her voice quiet but firm. "Then how are you paying for this?" Jason gestures at the hot chocolate and pastry. His gaze narrows on Elliot. "Or did you find yourself a sugar daddy?" Elliot feels a surge of distaste. "I think you should leave." Jason laughs, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "And I think you should mind your own business. Maya's coming with me." He reaches for her arm. Maya jerks away, nearly knocking over her hot chocolate. "No, I'm not." "You ungrateful little—" Jason leans closer, lowering his voice to a menacing whisper. "After all I've done for you? Taking you in when no one else would? You think you can just walk away?" "You didn't take me in," Maya hisses back. "You charged me rent to sleep on your couch and then tried to—" "Enough," Elliot interrupts, stepping between them. "The lady said she's not going with you." The cafe has gone silent, the other patrons watching the unfolding drama with undisguised interest. The landlady hovers near the counter, one hand near the phone, clearly debating whether to call the police. Jason's hand moves to his pocket, and something glints in the warm light. The blade of a switchblade barely exposed, a silent threat. "This isn't your concern, rich man. Walk away." Time seems to slow. Elliot is aware of multiple choices before him. He could retreat, call security, notify the authorities. The rational choice would be to step aside, let this family drama play out without his involvement. After all, what does he really know about this girl, about her life or her troubles? He has a company to run, investors to please, a legacy to build. But then he catches sight of Maya's face. The fear there, yes, but also a desperate hope, as if she's watching to see whether the universe truly offers second chances or whether kindness is just another lie. It's the same expression Claire wore the first time she grabbed his hand and pulled him into the rain to dance beneath a summer storm. Put the knife away, Elliot says, his voice carrying the same authority he uses in boardrooms when closing multi-million-dollar deals. Now, Jason hesitates, clearly unused to being challenged. His fingers tighten around the knife in his pocket. There are witnesses, Elliot continues calmly, security cameras, and I'm quite certain the police response time in this neighborhood is excellent. This last part is a bluff. He has no idea about local police response times, but he delivers it with such confidence that doubt flickers across Jason's face. She owes me, Jason insists, but his hand moves away from his pocket. Elliot reaches for a sharp nod. Fine, but I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu. A small act of defiance that makes Elliot smile for the first time in what feels like years. I would expect nothing less. He gestures toward the cafe, then begins walking, careful not to look back, to give her the space she needs to follow on her own terms. The rain continues its relentless assault as they make their way down the deserted street. Elliot can hear her footsteps behind him, hesitant at first, then growing more confident. The warm glow of the cafe grows stronger as they approach, promising shelter from the storm. As they reach the door, Elliot finally turns. The girl stands. A few feet away, rain streaming down her face, her clothes clinging to her thin frame. She clutches the locket at her throat like a talisman. There's a vulnerability in her eyes, but pride, too. A determination not to appear weak or needy despite her circumstances. After you, Elliot says, holding the door open. The girl steps forward, but before she can enter, a large woman appears in the doorway, effectively blocking the entrance. Her arms fold across her ample chest as her gaze locks on the soaked teenager. "Oh, no," the woman says, her accent thick, Eastern European. "Not you again. I told you last week. No money, no service. And you still owe rent for that room upstairs." The girl's chin lifts. "I have money tonight," she says, though her empty hands belie her claim. "You said that Tuesday, and last Friday." The woman's gaze shifts to Elliot, taking in his expensive clothes despite their sodden state. Her expression softens slightly. "Sir, this cafe is for paying customers. I'm sure you understand." Elliot looks between the landlady and the girl, whose cheeks have flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. The weight of his phone in his pocket reminds him of the meeting slipping further away with each passing minute. Rain continues to fall around them, indifferent to the human drama unfolding beneath it. Behind the landlady, the cafe beckons with warmth and light and the rich aroma of coffee. Behind Elliot, his car waits to whisk him back to the world of boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. The girl begins to back away, her momentary hope fading. "It's fine," she mutters. "I shouldn't have. How much does she owe?" Elliot interrupts, reaching for his wallet. Both women stare at him in surprise. "For the room," he clarifies, "and whatever tab she has here." "How much?" The landlady's eyes narrow with calculation. $300 for the room. Another $50 for food. The girl's head whips toward the older woman. "That's not—" "Here's $500, Elliot says, pulling crisp bills from his wallet and pressing them into the landlady's palm. "That should cover any future meals as well." The woman's fingers close around the money with practiced ease. Her expression transforms into a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "So generous, sir. Please, come in out of this terrible weather. Both of you." She steps aside, gesturing them into the warmth of the cafe. The girl hasn't moved, her expression a complex mixture of gratitude, suspicion, and wounded pride. "I don't need charity," she says quietly for Elliot's ears alone. "Consider it an advance," he replies, "for finishing the song you were singing." For a long moment she stands motionless in the rain, weighing his words, searching his face for hidden motives. Then, with a slight nod that might be acceptance or simply resignation, she steps past him into the cafe. As Elliot moves to follow, his phone buzzes one final time. He pulls it out, seeing a string of increasingly urgent messages from his assistant. The meeting has started without him. The investors are asking questions he's not there to answer. His absence has been noted, recorded, interpreted as disinterest or disrespect. With a single swipe, Elliot silences the phone and slips it back into his pocket. Then he steps through the doorway, leaving the storm and the carefully ordered world he's built since Claire's death temporarily behind. Inside, the cafe is a haven of warmth and rich aromas. Steam rises from cups of coffee and tea, fogging the windows that look out onto the rain-lashed street. The few patrons, an elderly couple sharing a pastry, a student surrounded by textbooks, a man in workman's clothes nursing an espresso, glance up briefly at the soggy newcomers before returning to their own worlds. The landlady leads them to a small table in the corner, her demeanor now solicitous after Elliot's display of generosity. "What can I bring you? Coffee? Tea? Perhaps something stronger to ward off the chill?" "Hot chocolate," the girl says immediately, sinking into a chair. "And whatever pastry is freshest." "The same for me," Elliot says, though he can't remember the last time he ordered hot chocolate. Such indulgences disappeared from his life along with Claire, replaced by black coffee and protein bars eaten. Spilling over her shoulders as her fingers danced across the keys, playing the opening notes of Moonlit Lullaby. "It was playing the first time my dad danced with my mom," she had explained, smiling up at him. "And the first time they danced. With me as a baby. It's like a spell in my family. Whenever it plays, something magical happens." The memory fades as quickly as it came, leaving Elliot disoriented, caught between past and present. His phone buzzes. A text from his assistant. "Board members arriving early. Where are you?" Outside, the girl's voice falters slightly as a particularly violent gust of wind drives the rain sideways. She hugs herself tighter, shoulders hunched against the cold, but continues singing, her voice carrying the melody like a fragile, precious thing. The lightning strikes again, closer now, casting her face in stark relief for a fraction of a second. Elliot catches a glimpse of hollow cheeks and determined eyes. She can't be more than 16 or 17, yet there's a weariness in her expression that speaks of burdens too heavy for such young shoulders. Fear grips him suddenly, not of missing the meeting or disappointing the investors, but of stepping outside the carefully constructed fortress of his grief, of acknowledging that something still exists that can touch him, move him, make him feel anything beyond the numb determination that has driven him these past 3 years. His phone buzzes again, then again. The board members will be waiting. The Henderson deal will fall through without his presence. The expansion into Asian markets will stall. His entire carefully constructed world could crumble if he opens that door and steps into the rain. But the girl's voice rises above the storm, carrying the bridge of Claire's favorite song, the part where the lyrics speak of finding light in darkness, of stars appearing one by one to guide lost travelers home. Elliot's hand tightens on the door handle. The door swings open, and the storm rushes to greet him. Rain immediately soaks through his $1,000 suit, plastering his carefully styled hair to his forehead. Cold droplets run down his neck, beneath his collar, but Elliot barely notices as he steps fully into the downpour. His Italian leather shoes sink into a puddle, water seeping through the seams. 3 steps, and he's completely drenched, his breath visible in small clouds before the rain dissipates them. The girl hasn't noticed him yet, her eyes closed as she sings, swaying slightly to the rhythm only she can hear above the storm. "Hello," Elliot calls, his voice nearly lost in a roll of thunder. The girl's eyes fly open. The song cuts off mid-verse as she takes an instinctive step backward, pressing herself against the brick wall. Her gaze darts to the left and right, seeking escape routes. "I didn't mean to startle you," Elliot says, remaining where he is, rain streaming down his face. I heard you singing." Wariness radiates from her like a physical force. Her hand moves to her throat, where a worn, silver locket hangs from a tarnished chain. I wasn't doing anything wrong, she says defensively. It's a public sidewalk. No, of course not, Elliot agrees quickly. Your voice is beautiful. She studies him, taking in the expensive suit now ruined by rain, the sleek watch on his wrist, the luxury SUV idling at the curb behind him. What? Do you want? The question catches Elliot off guard. What does he want? To hear the rest of the song? To know how this stranger came to be singing Claire's melody on this particular street corner on this particular night? To understand why, after 3 years of carefully maintained numbness, something has finally pierced the armor around his heart. There's a cafe just around the corner, he says instead of answering. It's warm and dry. Let me buy you a coffee, or hot chocolate, or whatever you'd like. Thunder punctuates his offer. The girl's eyes narrow with suspicion, but a violent shiver betrays her as the wind drives another sheet of rain beneath the fire escape. I don't go places with strange men, she says, but her tone lacks conviction. Her gaze flicks to the cafe Elliot mentioned, a small establishment whose windows glow with warm, inviting light amidst the gray storm. My name is Elliot Carrington, he says, risking a step closer. He holds out his hand, rain collecting in his open palm. Now, I'm not a stranger. She doesn't take his hand, but the corner of her mouth twitches. That's not how it works. How? About this, I'll walk to the cafe. You can follow at whatever distance makes you comfortable. The place will be full of people. If at any point you want to leave, you can. His phone buzzes in his pocket again. The meeting, the investors, billions of dollars and the future of his company hanging in the balance. All of it seems strangely distant now, like something happening to someone else in some other life. The girl hesitates, then gives. The rain drums against the sleek black SUV with a steady, relentless rhythm. Inside, the soft glow of a tablet illuminates Elliot Carrington's face as his eyes scan through financial projections and meeting notes. His fingers tap impatiently on the leather steering wheel. The board meeting starts in 30 minutes and he can't afford any mistakes tonight. Not when $3 billion in potential investments hangs in the balance. Mr. Carrington? His driver's voice crackles through the intercom. Traffic's backed up on Main. Should we take the side streets? Yes, Elliot replies, not looking, up from his tablet. Whatever gets us there fastest. Thunder rumbles overhead as the SUV pulls away from the financial district, turning onto a narrow street lined with shuttered storefronts and flickering street lamps. Rain cascades down the windows, transforming the outside world into a blurry watercolor of neon signs and shadows. Elliot loosens his tie slightly, feeling the familiar weight of exhaustion settling over him. The SUV slows to a crawl as a traffic light ahead turns red. Elliot glances at his watch. Imported Swiss, a gift from Claire on their last anniversary together. 25 minutes until the meeting. He should be reviewing the Henderson proposal one more time, or rehearsing responses to the inevitable. Questions about last quarter's dip in revenue. Instead, his attention drifts to the window as a sound cuts through the steady drumming of rain. A voice, clear, haunting, impossibly familiar, drifts toward him on the storm-laden air. The first notes of Moonlit Lullaby slice through him like a blade of ice. His breath catches in his throat. "Stop the car," he says, his voice barely above. A whisper. "Sir?" The driver's confused response comes through the intercom. "Stop the car now," Elliot commands, louder this time, his heart hammering against his ribs. The SUV pulls to the curb. Through the rain-streaked window, Elliot sees a slender figure huddled beneath the meager shelter of a rusted fire escape. A teenage girl, drenched despite her efforts to stay dry, singing into the storm as if her voice could somehow calm its fury. Moonlight dancing on your face, dreams to chase when morning breaks. The lyrics wrap around Elliot's heart and squeeze, until he can barely breathe. Claire's song. The melody she hummed while cooking breakfast, while working in her garden, while lying in his arms during those final, precious nights in the hospital. His hand moves to the door handle. The rational part of his brain reminds him of the meeting, of the billions at stake, of the responsibilities waiting for him. But the melody pulls at something deeper, something he's kept locked away since the day they lowered Claire's casket into the cold, unforgiving earth. Rain lashes against the windshield in sheets now. Lightning flashes, illuminating the girl's face for a brief moment. Young, determined, with a vulnerability that reminds him painfully of Claire when they first met. Elliot's hand hovers over the door handle, trembling slightly. The board meeting, the investors, his company's future, all waiting. But so is she, this mysterious singer with Claire's song on her lips. His fingers close around the handle. The weight of the handle beneath his fingers triggers a cascade of memories. Claire's, hand in his as they walked down the aisle, her fingers intertwined with his as they signed the papers for their first home. The fragile lightness of her grip in those final days when even the smallest movements exhausted her. "You're going to change the world, Elliot," Claire had said, her voice thin but her eyes blazing with the fierce belief that had always defined her. "Promise me you won't stop when I'm gone." He had promised, and then he had buried himself in work after her death, expanding Carrington Technologies from a promising startup into a global empire. He attended board meetings and investor dinners. He signed contracts and approved acquisitions. He did everything except actually live. Lightning flashes again, closer this time, briefly illuminating the rain-soaked street. The girl's silhouette is outlined against the brick wall behind her, small, vulnerable, yet somehow defiant as she continues to sing despite the storm raging around her. "Promise me you'll find joy again." Claire had whispered the night before. She died, her fingers tracing the lines of worry that had already begun to etch themselves into his forehead. Not just success. Joy, Elliot. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of existing rather than living. 3 years of building walls around the emptiness Claire left behind. And now, on this rain-drenched street corner, with the most important meeting of his career waiting, a stranger's voice has somehow breached those walls with a simple melody. Elliot's. Breath fogs the window as another memory surfaces. Claire sitting at their baby grand piano, her honey-blonde hair.